A very, very good evening to each and everyone who's there today. A very warm welcome to the PSAI Talk Show. This is your host, Bharti Naik, and PSAI, Professional Speakers Association of India. We are here every Friday, 9 p.m. amongst you to take you forward to the journey of professional speaking. Well, I want to dedicate this talk show today. And this being the 25th talk show since we started PSAI Talk Show from November. Being 25th talk show, it is a mark of celebration. But today, on behalf of the entire PSAI Talk Show team and PSAI, I want to dedicate this talk show to our dear friend, our PSAI member, Ritu Grover. Yesterday, she lost the battle to COVID. And she was absolutely a delight to all of us. And as she rightly mentioned, every time, whenever she used to talk to us, whenever she used to contribute to PSAI journey, she always used to say that life is to live, life is to move on, and life is for the fullest. And with her entire life, with a journey to look forward to, today, she gave a very strong message to all of us. We as professional speakers, we speak to inspire, we speak to educate, we speak to influence people to take action. And with her journey, with her full of life, full of enthusiasm and happiness in her life, she gave us a message that as a professional speakers, we are the voice that people want to hear. So with whatever possible manner, as an author, as a speaker, what message we want to share to the world, we need to put forward this message in a much better way to the world for everybody to hear, see, and feel. And this is a tribute to my dear friend, to our family, to our PSAI family member, Ritu Grover. So a moment of silence. I would want all of you to have her in our prayers, have her in your prayers, in your heart. She's always going to be in our heart. For you, Ritu. And this platform, this association, Professional Speakers Association of India, has become a family. It's a bond, it's a connection that we, all of us, when we came together in this association, that's what this entire platform has given to us. Because we all know that when we go into this journey, we have the message to share to the world. We have a lot of questions. We have so many technologies to take care. And as rightly put, since last year, due to pandemic, we all went virtual, we all went online. And came the huge setback for all of us to convert, to change the business model. And with this came this community to the rescue. All the members standing united with each other, giving this hand of support, hand of help, saying that you are not alone, but we are all together in this world, in this community. And that's what the spirit of PSAI is. Because we stand by our values. We stand by the values of respect, integrity, excellence, and trust. And that's what this community has given to all of us. And today, we have a special guest, a very, very special guest. And yes, we invited this special guest to share with us how is the entire life, how the world looks like from the president's point of view, from an academician who moved from an academician to a professional speaker, who have lived his life, given 35 years to professional speaking. And of course, having an in-depth research, having a doctorate in knowing how people make decisions And well, that was very interesting for me to understand how people make decisions. And he is Dr. John Molidor, President of Global Speakers Federation, certified speaking professional, and he has been emeritus professor of psychiatry, Michigan State University, and he's been an author, professional speaker, and to top it all, a very, very dear papa to her granddaughters. And with this, I would like to invite Dr. John Molidor. Please, please, all of you who are watching this talk show, give him a roaring, roaring noise by putting comments welcoming him to our PSAI talk show, which is the 25th episode today. Welcome, Dr. John.
Hi, Bharti. I look at that picture of me and it's like oh, look at my granddaughters would probably go, oh, he's a softie. He's such a softie, which I am to them. They have me wrapped around their little baby fingers and sort of like whatever they want. I go, okay, it's all right. It's all right. Again, I want to acknowledge the what you've talked about in terms of COVID right at the very start. And it's impacted all of us, and it's changed our brains. It's changed our lives. It's made us look inward in many ways. And so as difficult and as sad as this whole pandemic has been, it also has shown us the commonalities and similarities across the globe when it comes to professional speakers. So I want to clearly acknowledge Rita and also PSAI coming together as a community, because that's how we're going to get through this. And so again, so sad to hear the news on that, but also want to clearly talk about how we can come together as a community.
Yes, and that's what the spirit that we all are sharing. And I'm really, really happy that it's not only the PSAI, the community at India, professional speakers community, but it is global. And I got a lot of messages from Jonathan, from Kenneth, asking me about how the family is, how you and your family is coping up, and how is it happening in India. So I feel the warmth, I feel the love the community has given to all of us globally. So I welcome you all. I welcome you to this talk show, John, and this is really exciting to have you and having a fantastic interaction. And I'm looking forward to fantastic conversation with you. So having said that, I would like to ask you, John, you have been a professor, an academician, and done an extensive research. How was your journey? How was your journey moving from an academician to a professional speaker?
So one of the things that happened fairly early in my career is because I started, as you've mentioned, as an academician. My background is in medicine, and so that was the area that I was working. And the medical school allowed me to kind of develop my own areas, professional development. And one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to learn how to become better at the art and craft of speaking. So I ventured forth to try to learn a little bit more about that, because many of us, we speak in the way that we were taught. And so most of my professors were very boring and they would read their notes and they would, and again, I'm going to date myself. They even had overhead projected slides, and then they had 35 millimeter slides, and they would dim the lights and they would talk to you and you'd be like, oh. And so I thought to myself, oh, I can't teach that way. It just won't work. So I ventured forth to learn more about the art and craft. And I came upon the National Speakers Association of the United States. And so I joined them. So anybody who's thinking about becoming a professional speaker really needs to be looking at PSAI, because it's in that community that you've already referenced. That's where you learn the art and craft. And then you also learn how to run a business. And so I kept in both worlds. So I kept my academic role, but I also then basically wanted to make sure that I was learning about the art and craft of speaking. So I figured communication was always going to be important. So it was really a neat way for me to learn about professional speaking. And then over time, I found myself doing more and more professional speaking. And I thought it's time to start to sort of move out of that. So recently, then I've moved out of academia, hence the emeritus status, to become then a professional speaker. So I know many of you are very jealous of my timing, since I decided to do that in the middle of a pandemic when nobody was having in-person events. So we've had to quickly learn how to then figure out how to basically do this remote. And so this has been an interesting process because it has changed our brain. And we can talk about that a little bit later on. But that's something we need to be aware of, because it's changing our audience's brain. And we have to be aware of that in how we present. So that's kind of briefly how I sort of made the transition from the research and academic side. Now, the one thing I did take with me, and it's something that I think we need to be aware of as a profession of speaking. Make sure what you're saying is factual, or if it's your own experience, nothing wrong with that. I think it's important to make sure people know that's your experience versus, so if you say, in my experience, or what has worked well for me is the following 5 items, that's fine. It's when we as speakers start to go, here are the 5 things you have to do, then it starts to sound like research, and it's not. It's just your experience. And again, nothing wrong with your experience, but I find the speakers sometimes take those 2 and they maybe mess them up a little bit. So that's one thing that I've taken with me, and I will continue to take with me into the profession of speaking.
I agree to what you're saying, John, because when I was doing my Master's of Science, one of my professors, she very clearly told us that now onwards, because you are doing your Master's, you will be into your research, whenever you are talking to people, whenever you are saying anything about your studies, never generalize, because that could be your perception, that could be your experience, but it could be only 1 or 2 persons. But whenever you want to talk about giving facts, then you be better, thorough with the research, thorough with in-depth understanding of what you're mentioning. Not better generalize it. So, and I probably have this learning very strongly inside me. So it helps me a lot in my professional speaking. When I want to share any message, give any facts, I always have to look back to the research, find out whether this is really has been the case, or it's just a matter of some perceptions that has been built. So thank you so much.
Well, and to build on that, like you said, in order for us to influence people, to educate them, to inspire them, we have to make sure that what we're saying is the truth. And again, even as a scientist or an academician, we worry a little bit about when we talk, we say the word fact, but if there's research out there, that's where we need to make sure that what we're saying is based in fact. And in a world right now where fake news or people say things, and I think as professional speakers, if we are to elevate our profession, we need to make sure that what we're saying is either our own truth or truth kind of based on research or facts or data. I think that will help us as a profession. Otherwise, we're just, thousands of professional speakers just saying things that are all over the place. And to your point, sometimes we hear someone that we admire or respect or think this person really is good, and they say something, and so we repeat it without ever checking out to see if it's true or not. And we need to, again, I'll own this. I think we need to make sure that we are fact checking ourselves in what we say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am very intrigued to understand that about your research. And the research states that how people make decisions. And I tumbled upon your book, which says Crazy Good Interviewing, how acting a little crazy can get you the job. Can you throw us a little bit light about this research, that how did you come up with this research, how people take decisions?
So one of the things that I was intrigued by is, and you've heard all these things like first impression bias. You meet somebody and say you immediately feel very strongly about them. Well, what we found is that in interviewer selections, people probably were selecting themselves. It's sort of like if someone was a lot like you, you automatically gave them extra credit. And so I looked at how people made decisions by comparing what they said they were doing and then building actually mathematical models that predicted what they were doing. And we were able to show that you could build mathematical models that would replicate or duplicate people's decision making, and actually was better in the long run because they didn't have what they called good days or bad days. And so I just kept going along with this whole idea of how people make decisions. That kind of led to perceptions, because the brain takes in information through first, sensations, and then perceptions, then feelings, then thoughts, and then all this then gets combined then to behavior. And so if you want to be aware of certain things while you're feeling, you want to pay attention to sensations. So that's what's happening inside of you. Perceptions is then when I make you aware of it. So for example, if I said to you, Bharti, so I'm going to assume you're sitting in a chair. And so now if you want to feel and sense what your feet are feeling on the floor, now I've taken your brain and you have to then pay attention to the perceptions of your feet on the ground. Then we could talk about feeling. So what are you feeling right now? It's like, are you relaxed? Are you anxious? Are you like wondering, is John going to shut up so I can ask the next question, or then it's like, and then it's like thoughts. It's like, oh, what, and then it all leads to behavior. And so one of the things that becomes important then when we're thinking about presenting to people is be aware of all those, because that will affect their learning. And so this, again, moving rapidly through a number of years of starting, research and then doing the book and now brain, because I'm very, very fascinated with the brain now. Well, I've always been, but even more so given this pandemic and what's happened to do it. But the decision making is critical. Here's a piece of info which is kind of interesting. Typically, in trying to replicate people's decision making, there's probably three variables, just three things that will probably account for their decision making. So if you were to buy a home or rent a condo or rent an apartment, and you say, I want to have this, there's probably only three things that really matter, and it'd be important then to know what those three are. And so sometimes the speakers, we do way too much. And we probably can break it down into like three key things, or what I talk about even in the book is 3+1. So here would be the three things that you'd want to pay attention to. And if I could add one more, so 3+1 is also a good model when you're thinking about presenting or putting together a presentation or keynote.
Okay, that's wonderful. Because if I have to take a leaf from that research and apply it in the professional speaking, as professional speakers, when we approach corporates, companies for keynote speeches, there are people in the companies who take decisions that whether we should hire this keynote speaker, whether we should give this a project to the speaker, or so if I have to ask you from your experience and your research, what could be those key areas or quick key things that will really help us to understand that as a professional speaker, when we look at or when we approach the companies to corporates, what are the key things that we must take care of, we must understand as speakers?
So what I would probably do is I would use what I call the 3+1 model. So the corporation saying like, in essence, they're saying, why should we hire you? And so you, as the speaker, would say something along the lines that I would bring the following 3 things to my presentation, or 3 areas in our exchange. Number 1, and then what you do is you try to figure out what is their biggest problem. And then you'd probably say a solution to how you increase productivity when people are working remote. Number 2, and then you'd name number 2, and then 3. So I really can't say, because as you know, every corporation has a different issue. But if you do a little research, and that's where the good old internet is so great, you do a little research, you look at their newsletter, you figure out, what's going on, you look at the end of year report, you can probably get a feel for what's going on. You do a Google search to see when they appear in the news. And then you look and see what people are saying about the corporation. And then what I would probably do is my +1 at the end. So I say, we will address the problem of employees working remotely. 2, we'll look at increasing efficiency. 3, we'll look at blah, blah, blah. And if I could add one more, I will do this all in a professional manner, or that I will bring my expertise as a speaker to you, and that you sort of highlight the fact is that you're a professional speaker, and you're comfortable in front of the audience, you're comfortable in front of a camera, and that's what you would be able to provide to them. So the 3+1 model is a really nice way to be thinking about what you would bring to them when you sell your services. When you do your presentation, I would probably do a similar thing. I'm going to cover 3 areas, and if we have time, I'm going to add one more. So of course they want you to have time to add the one more. You start building an expectation. So 3+1, I think, is a nice way to try to approach this.
That's wonderful. That's really wonderful. And putting it into the perspective made a lot of sense for us. In fact, I can quickly adapt and say that we have 3 things that we can share, and we can ask you, John. And there is, if there's time permits and you are there with us, we can have +1. We can have one more thing that we can add.
And so it's a brain technique. For some reason, 3 seems to be a pretty powerful number around the world. And maybe it's because it's so built into our language. So we have the past, we have the present, and the future. And so adding the +1 also signals that, oh, there's a little bit more. And then if you do the +1 correctly, it actually reinforces the first 3. And I think that's what you want. It's like boom, boom, boom. Oh, and if I could add one more, is that, I've been a professional speaker for 15 years. I've done this on Zoom or StreamYard. I've done this, in live, and I would bring that expertise to you. It'd be like, wow, oh, if she does that, she can also do the first 3. So it's a pretty nice little technique.
That's beautiful. And what I also know a little bit that I read about your development, what you developed, proposed, and also implemented the 4 E's of professional speaking competencies. And want to understand that how you link these competencies to a certification, which as a professional speaker, I would always be aspiring to have that certification of professional speaking. So, can you share a little bit more about what are these 4 E's and how how it is linked to the certification process?
So coming from 3 other professions, so I had medicine, psychiatry, and psychology. Each one of those areas basically said, in order to be a professional, you had to have expertise, you had to have competencies. And so what I did is I looked at a bunch of competencies from those areas and came up with the 4 E's for the National Speakers Association. And I also know that it's being used now across the world. So the first is expertise. So if you're going to speak, you have to be able to talk about something that you know or you're an expert in. The second E is eloquence. We want you to be able to do it eloquently, be good with words, phrases. Then you're going to do it as part of an enterprise, because this is a business. And then we want you to do it in an ethical manner. So we literally would say that we would define, and I wanted this model to define what a professional speaker is. So it's someone who brings expertise in an eloquent fashion as part of a business or enterprise and does so in an ethical manner. Those would be the 4 components. If you're thinking of joining PSAI and you're missing one of the areas, then you come to PSAI to learn them. So PSAI would help you learn your enterprise or business. It probably could help you become more eloquent. I mean, all you have to do is watch the incredible speakers and members of PSAI and you see how eloquent they are. We probably don't help people that much in terms of expertise. We expect you to bring that. Now we can help you develop it, but typically you don't walk into an association like this and go, teach me how to become an expert in interpersonal communication. Hopefully, like with your background, in family development, family studies, human development, you bring that expertise and then PSAI helps you develop it. If you don't have ethics, we would basically say, there's no room for you. We don't want you in PSAI. We don't want you in NSA. We don't want you even in the Global Speakers Federation, because ethics becomes the foundation of trust. And that has to be. If it's not there, so we jokingly would say that if you have expertise but no eloquence, you're probably a professor. And so many of us have had people, they're so brilliant, but they have no eloquence. We would even say, come to PSAI, because you could learn basically how to become more eloquent. And then if you want to develop an enterprise, you could do that. And then, of course, ethics becomes important. So once I kind of came up with that model, then the key was, all right, if we're going to have a certification process, so if we want to certify, so again, I borrow from the other professions that I'm familiar with, you want to be able to say that they show competency in all these areas. And so we want to measure then this process. So the Certified Speaking Professional, the CSP, is a process where you've given X number of speeches over X number of years. So right now, the typical one is about 250 speeches over, say, a 10-year or 7-year, or in some instances, 5-year period. You're running a business. You would then ask for external evaluation. So your clients basically would then say, Bharti did a fantastic job, but we want to make sure that we're measuring expertise, eloquence, enterprise, and ethics. So the evaluations are then tied to those competencies. We would then do a video review or a peer review where you would submit an unedited video, and then in our case, 4 peers, 4 people that have the CSP would then evaluate your video using an assessment form that has, I know it'll shock you, expertise, eloquence, probably not so much enterprise because you've already done that, but then ethics. And so we would tie those together. So the certified speaking professional designation is given by NSA, United States, and PSA in Australia. PSA UKI gives the FPSA, it's called the Fellow of the Professional Speakers Association, because in the UK, the term certified does not have quite as the status as, say, a fellow. And so but those are right now the 3 countries that are doing it. Singapore is looking into it. At a recent GSF meeting, PSAI asked if they could be involved in granting a CSP. So we'll start working with you to try to make that happen and to make that happen. But the certified speaking professional designation is the highest earned designation that you can get. It's based on number of speeches, obviously income that goes with it, then the external evaluations and internal evaluations. And it signals to the world that this is a certified speaking professional that knows how to handle contracts, knows how to handle a microphone, knows how to handle when the microphone goes dead, knows how to, because they have experience and they know how to make this happen. So it is a really coveted designation and very, very important.
I must say this is a very robust and holistic approach, because as a professional speaker, if I have to put my aspiring journey, I know that where I have to now put my aim and reach there. So I can very easily have my path ready and work towards having that wonderful designation for the world that yes, I'm a certified speaking professional. So thank you so much, John, for sharing these insights. And it has made all of us an aspirational at this point of time, stating that yes, we can reach here, we can get into all these competencies and be the best that we can be. So,
well, the other thing that I like about the 4 E's is that it allows you to do your own professional development. And so it's like, if I need to build my expertise, so I've used this time of the sheltering in place, the COVID, to really learn more. It's been frustrating because a lot of things I'm learning now, not the same stuff I learned, when I was in grad school or as I was coming through. I've had to get rid of that. You could then look at things and say, all right, I need to become better at the eloquence. And then what do you need to do? And maybe the enterprise. And so the beauty of this is when you have your convention, you could then say, all right, maybe today I'm going to focus on expertise and tomorrow I'm going to focus on eloquence, or, make sure that you're rounding it out and maybe pushing yourself to become strong in all 4 of those areas, because if you do that, it does lead you then to say you qualified to become the certified speaking professional.
And considering that the COVID times that we are in, since the last year, everything has changed for us across the globe. So has the professional speaking as an industry, as a business, it has gone into a big, big change. So what are your observations and something that has come to your awareness about APAC region, about Europe, about US? What is the adaptability? How the business models have been changed for professional speakers?
I think what's going to happen is that the hybrid speaking model, so the hybrid being that there'll be both in person as well as remote, I think that may stick around. We're hearing this from both sides, from both the speaking side as well as from the organization side. So from the speaker side, at first it was very frustrating because you weren't out on the road, you weren't doing stuff. But then all of a sudden speakers started to go, wow, I basically can go from my office or my setup or my dining room table, wherever you've set up, your office, to then go in the kitchen and eat your own food, to sleep in your own bed without the stress of traveling. And for many speakers, initially it was like, oh, not too much fun. But then it's kind of like, hey, I can be home, give the presentation, and still eat, drink, and sleep in my own home. On the organization side, if they look at if it's done remote and the ROI, the return on investment, is the same, and they didn't have to pay for airfare for every one of their employees, hotel, meals, transportation, there's a massive savings there. And if they still get the content that they need, that's important. So I think as professional speakers, we are going to have to continue to become innovative, creative, still be true to ourselves, but we just can't take our speech and then put it, in this little Zoom box and expect it to have the same thing. We have to do some interactions. We have to, again, it's using the breakout rooms, it's using mental breaks. It's all about the art and craft of speaking, but now it's being done remote. So I think everything I'm hearing is hybrid is here for a while, because we will not go back immediately to in person. And when we do, people are going to they'll be sitting apart, maybe masked, maybe not. We'll see. So I think it's changed this profession, but it's also shown us, based on my travels remotely around the world, how much more alike we are than in the past. I mean, look at us. I mean, you and I have now talked on numerous occasions where in the past, if we were there in the same spot, maybe, but no, we're communicating remotely. I think it's got some power.
Yes. And I know that with the last year, everything changed. A lot of opportunities. The geographical boundaries has been erased, and we all have been to remote, to online, to virtual. And with the opportunities, the doors that has opened for all of us, with your observations and awareness, do you have any statistics opportunities which are there in these regions, in Europe, in US, where the opportunities are there for professional speakers?
So here's how I would probably research it. I would look at, in some ways, where are countries at developmentally? And you would look at it maybe economically, maybe psychologically, intellectually, and then if you want, and if I could add one more, where are they at sort of maybe culturally in terms of issues of gender, of issues of sexual orientation, of I can't think of a third one, but it's like, and then figure out where those countries are, because there are going to be things in Germany, for example, that if the number of immigrants coming in, what's needed, say, in Germany, that unfortunately maybe won't be needed in the United States, because whatever, until we figure out what's going on. There's issues in India, as you well know, in terms of when you move from the city, as you move out more rural, and there's things that have to happen there. So what I would be looking at is, where are the emerging economies? Where are the emerging cultures? And then if my topic is tied to that, that's where I'd go after. So if a country's producing a huge number of entrepreneurs, I'd either tailor my topic then to go after those entrepreneurs. If I'm going after established CEOs of what we would call the Fortune 100 companies, well, I probably wouldn't be going to emerging economies for that, because they wouldn't have that number. So I would look at some of the demographics, I'd look at historical data, and then I try to figure out where my topic might fit. Because of that, I chose a topic that I wanted to make sure would really be work globally, and that was the brain. Not everybody's got one, not that everybody uses it. I figured it would be a good way to go, you got a brain? I can talk to you. I have a topic for you. You don't have a brain? Maybe not, you know?
That's interesting. Okay, and this is really makes sense where we need to look at the regions, the cultures, and also if I put everything into the perspective of looking at the perception of people, understanding their thoughts and emotions, and look at the behaviors that they are displaying right now in this situation, and how I can put my topic in that region. So I think that
Absolutely.
makes a
Absolutely.
lot of sense.
Because you even know in your 29 states, the economics is different. And so
Yes.
you can't just, it's similar to like in the United States of America. I wouldn't say, all right, here's 50 states. I'm just going to do the same thing for all 50. I want to be able to tailor it. Or for me, I want to basically go, if I'm going to be speaking to leaders or CEOs or C-suites, I'm going to take neuroscience principles that I think they need. If I'm speaking to professional speakers, I'm going to choose the neuroscience principles that I think the speakers need to know. So to me, then I take my area, if you will, and then I tailor it to the group. It's the same process that one would do if they want to start expanding their own like speaker base, their client base. That's what I would do. I'd look at it that way.
Okay, that's really beautiful. And moving on to this talk show, and this is the most interesting and the amazing part of the talk show that I always love. And here comes the fun element. And I'm going to throw a few questions, and let's see what's hidden, or maybe people who are not aware about who Dr. John Molidor is. So, with your permission, may I have your first question? Can I have the first question? Okay, so the first question is one thing that people don't know about you.
Let's see. One thing they don't know about me. There's so many things that I've kept hidden away.
Maybe rest of the things you can tell me later.
No, I like kung fu movies.
Kung fu. That's interesting. Okay, all right. And would you want to complete this sentence for me? Never have I ever.
Said anything bad about my family. So as you and I know, so I'm one of 10. So family is so important to me. And let's just say with that many siblings, I've been tempted to say,
wow.
But in the end, it's their family, and I love them, and will always love them, and they'll always be there. So that's probably been one of my sources of strength.
Beautiful. I think that's what bring all of us together. The whole sense of being a family united together in these times. So, John, how does your 1 hour before the keynote speech looks like? How does it look like?
So that's changed a lot over the years. I am what I would call a tinkerer. I love to tinker. So I am changing things literally right up to the moment where I have to stop or give AV, if I have to give AV, my thumb drive with the presentation, I am playing with that, changing it because, like we talked earlier. So if I know that the prime minister in India just did something and I want to, and it's on people's minds, I want to weave it into the presentation. So I'm not one of those people that goes, oh, I have to go into the zone and have total quiet. That's not me. I'm talking to people, I'm tinkering. Now, maybe 5 minutes before I go on or 2 minutes before I go on, then I do say this one mantra: I'm here to serve. And so I remind myself, all I can do is serve, and as part of serving is sharing. And so I basically go, I'm here to share. And then I don't get into my head and worry about, well, what if they like it, don't like it? No, I'm here to share. I'm here to serve. And that seems to calm me, especially after I've tinkered with any last minute changes.
I must say, John, that's a beautiful statement for all of us. I'm here to serve. And when we say this sentence in our mind, even before we start speaking, it actually calms us. It actually relaxes us. The entire focus shifts from what I am doing, what I'm capable, to what I want to serve to the world, what I want to share to the people.
And I would also add that I had to come to that over the years. So when I first started, I basically I wanted feedback. I wanted to know how I did, and I think that's a necessary step, that you do need feedback. How did I do? How did it come across? But eventually, I found myself shifting to, how did they do? And did it, what do I need to do to help them? And so even when I ask for feedback now, I ask it in with two questions. The first question is, what worked well for you? So, Bharti, you and I, I'm sure we'll talk afterwards, and I will say to you, Bharti, what worked well for you in the talk show? And then
Yes.
I will ask you, what would have worked better for you, or what would work better for you in the future? And then if you tell me, then the beauty of that is I can make a conscious choice to accept or not accept. Versus if you tell me you should have done this, should have done that, all that ends up doing is shaming the person, because there's nothing they can do about it. It's done. Versus what would work better for me in the future is it's a process I've come up with psychologically that seems to work. It also works well in relationships. So, in a love relationship, if you say to your partner, honey, what would work better for me in the future is, and then you say it, it seems to be come over, versus why do you keep doing this and blah, blah, blah. But now we're moving off the topic. Back to you, Bharti.
Well, that's the most interesting part of the conversation. The moment we start talking, the moment we have a conversation, it goes and it flows beautifully like a river. And I am flown by all the questions that I'm receiving from the audience on my WhatsApp, on the Facebook, and there are so many questions. So I know we have 5 more minutes. We can move ahead in the talk show. The first question I would want to ask.
So wait a minute. I can answer the first one of the questions right away. Yes, these are live flowers. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're not live at all. I just turn them every once in a while. I turn them so they look pretty. Back to you, Bharti.
Okay. So the first question that has come from Chandar Sharma: what worked well for you, and what would work better for you? So Subramaniam also had the similar question, and asking this question is, how would we know from the audience that what has worked for them and what could be better for them for the future?
So 2 parts to that. One is, it's important to put in the future. When I first started, I didn't put that phrase in. And what I found out is that what would work better probably still had some of what I call the shaming in it. Versus what would work better in the future, it now projected forward. So here I would talk to the person that hired you. I would probably then ask, could I follow up with 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 of the attendees to get some feedback? Or if you're doing an assessment, I actually put that into the assessment. What worked well for you during this session? What would work better for you in the future for a session like this? And then they can tell. So I'm always asking the people that hire me. So, Bharti, you and I are going to have a conversation after this. So I get feedback, because then I will get better, I hope. Or I may get feedback that somebody says, well, you need to change your glasses. Well, I can accept that or not. And I probably won't. So if anybody wants me to change my glasses, I won't, because I need them to see. But you get the idea that we move it from a defensive fight or flight or emotional response to it's a more cognitive approach that I can consciously decide yes or no if I'm going to accept that.
Yeah, so that's more interesting and insightful, John, because when we are focusing on the present of what worked well, what is the present situation right now, and then focusing towards the future, asking about that, okay, what would want us to do better? I think that is a fantastic perspective, because that lays off the guards and it puts us into the mode of a learner and say, okay, here I am to learn and make myself better, serve myself better. So how can I make it happen the next time? Beautiful.
And it avoids what we call the emotional centers of the brain. And so, for example, we know that criticism is actually seen and experienced by many people similar to physical pain. So if somebody's criticizing you, the brain often translates that to physical pain. Well, if someone's criticizing you and you're experiencing physical pain, you're probably not going to change your behavior. And that's why I wanted to shift it more to a cognitive process, thinking process. And so, if I say to Chandler, what would work better for me in the future is, he can then make a decision to take my information or not. But the opportunity goes to him off of me. And so that I like that. I also like it in relationships.
Yes, that works fantastic. So yes, criticism does equals to sometimes physical pain, because people do look at it as something that is harmful. But the moment we change the perspective, we shift the focus to future, that helps. I have an interesting question from Subramaniam, from our PSAI member. And he's asking that how evolved is professional speaking in APAC versus Europe and US?
How
Evolved is
evolved.
professional.
So what I'm discovering is that all right, so see, I jumped up a little bit. I got on a soapbox. One of the things we have to be careful about is that speakers tell stories or they make statements that just are not true. And so what I'm seeing is that, and I can't necessarily say where this is happening, because this actually happens in the US, Europe, APAC. It happens all over. And so what I would advise people is check out this stuff. So for example, you only use 10% of your brain. That's out there. A lot of people say that. It is just flat out wrong. The science does not support that. In fact, the science clearly says that's not true. Another one is in communication. They say only 7% of communication is words. That's wrong. It's just wrong data. It's a misuse. And so what I'm seeing is that in many ways, the movement now to the technology is actually elevated the profession of speaking across all these different regions. But regions still are saying stuff, or speakers are in those regions, that just isn't true. Like you buy with your heart and you rationalize with your mind. I can't find any research whatsoever that supports that statement, yet I hear it a lot. And here's the one that was crazy. We have 3 brains. We have a reptilian brain, an emotional brain, and a thinking brain. It's not true. It's just not true. And yet I was taught this. This is what I was taught, coming up, through my graduate studies. Not true. And yet you see it in leadership stuff. So sorry, I got to get off my soapbox now. But I would say, in terms of being involved, let's keep fact checking ourselves. Let's help one another. So if I heard a speaker say it, I would probably go up to them afterwards and say, what would work better for me in the future is that if you referenced or researched the 7% or the 10% or the 3 brains, because I think you might find blah, blah, blah. Now, they still may say, I don't care, I'm going to use it. But if we're going to be a profession, we have to elevate it. So I'm hoping everybody sort of continues to evolve.
That's really beautiful when we have the foundation of research and we have done the thorough study of what we are speaking, what facts and data that we are saying. That really makes a lot of sense. And I know that you have answered the question about opportunities for professional speaking. But the one question that has come from the audience, that is there a difference in the opportunity of professional speaking in different regions?
Tell me more. Let's say, is there a different opportunity in different regions? Yeah, I would say yes. There probably is a difference in opportunity. And here's how I think it's going to happen. So one of the things that I initiated, and it started through the Global Speakers Federation, the GSF, is putting together the leaders of the different associations. So right now we have 17 professional speaking associations globally. PSAI is one of those, obviously. We have an 18th one that's making an application. And my guess is there might be a couple more that are in the works, which is phenomenal in a pandemic that an entire association's coming on. But by putting together these leaders and they get to know each other, then my hope is they start to refer individuals in their own association to these other leaders. And so then we find out who's doing what in technology, who's doing what, because again, my hope is the pandemic, and I will own this. I think the United States rightly gets dinged sometimes because they think, whoa, we've been in this the longest, we must know it. And sometimes there's an arrogance which needs to be sort of like knocked out of their head, because it's like, no, I mean, there's stuff going on in India. And again, as we talked the other day,
yes,
1.3 billion people versus our 300, 365, it's like, yeah, there's a little bit of a difference here when we talk about size. So there's so much intellectual knowledge and expertise. And I think we're starting to see that it's not just located in one region. It's not located in one country. It's not located in one association. And so my hope is that by creating stronger relationships, more collegial relationships, that's where it's going to happen. And it's events like this, it's opportunities like this that we help, I think will end up helping each other.
Okay. Beautiful. And I have a very interesting question. This is completely off what professional speaking is. So the question is, what keeps you so young and energetic, smiling all the time, and where do you shop from this tropical shirts that you have all the time, the lovely shirts that you wear?
So when I became a full professor, and many of you know, again, it's a very strict process of going from assistant to associate to full professor. So when I became a full professor, I decided right then and there, I would no longer wear a tie, because I used to wear a tie. And then I decided that, I wanted to be comfortable. And I would wear the Tommy Bahama or floral or Hawaiian shirts. And yes, I might put a jacket over it. And the reason you're not seeing a Hawaiian shirt is because Bharti asked me to wear blue today in honor of the 25th and in the honor of the talk show. So I went with my light blue to be a contrast. But I like the Hawaiian shirts. The other reason is that shortly after I became professor and decided I was no longer going to wear a tie, is that I was asked to speak at a conference, and they said, no ties, no suits. And they say, if you show up in a suit or a tie, we're going to cut the tie off. We're going to take it off. So I'm like, what do I do? So I went out and got a Tommy Bahama, got a Hawaiian shirt. I was so comfortable wearing it because I generate a lot of heat when I speak. So it's like, so I decided I'm just going to do it. And if people don't like it, they don't like it. And the only downside is oftentimes I'll hear things like they'll go back to the meeting planner and they say, we'd like to hear that guy. We don't know his name, but he wears Hawaiian shirts. And so the other thing in terms of trying to look young and smile. So again, probably growing up in a family with 9 siblings, you have to smile. Otherwise you cry a lot. Is that I make sure, so during, I look at my Monday through Friday, I walk. I walk a minimum of 4 miles every day in doing that. And then on the weekends, I may do another 4 or 5 each day, but that's at a reduced pace. So I'm paying very close attention to my exercise, to my diet. So let's see, exercise, eating. So I'm adding a couple more E's. Very strong relationship with my wife, who's a breast cancer surgeon. And so, yeah, I'm loving this. I'm loving life. I'm loving at this point in my life being able to share with people. So it works.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So what I draw this lesson or the learning from you is when you put off and you say, okay, I want to be in my comfortable best, and I want to project who I am, and that became a signature that, okay, we don't know the name of the person, but we know somebody who won the won the floral shirt. But I think that itself is something that we as a professional speakers can imbibe and say that we are in our comfortable best, and that's what the authenticity reflects when we speak, when we present ourselves, when we project ourselves, and that's wonderful.
Absolutely. And again, I would probably, if I could add to that, I love what you said in terms of your authentic self, because it's basically, it's got to come from there. If you try to do the gimmick for the sake of the gimmick, I don't think it'll last. And then I think people see through it. And so it's not like I ever set out to sort of say, I want to wear floral shirts or any of that. It's just, I realized how comfortable they were, and they fit me in terms of my style, because I move, I generate some energy. And so it was very comfortable. And then it was like, oh, very comfortable. So in my interactions with, whether it be presenting or one-on-one, I try to project then comfort to the other person and to the audience.
Yeah.
And in my brain, I will say to yourself, my job is to create a safe place, and then invite the person into that safe place so that we can have a conversation. And so that's very important for me. So comfort is probably just flowed from whatever my authentic self is.
That's beautiful. When I put this into the perspective of theory of multiple intelligences, I look at it as a high on intrapersonal and interpersonal intelligence, where a person becomes comfortable with you, and that's where the natural selves come out. Beautiful. And one quick and last question, John. How does your day look like with the granddaughters? I know you shared a couple of stories, but want to know how your day looks like with them.
So for those of you who are grandparents, you know this already. For those that are just parents, you will learn it. And so basically, what we talked about is the saying that why do grandkids and grandparents get along so well? We say they have a common enemy. And so I will find my son saying things like, you never let me get away with this. Why do you let the the daughters get away with it? It's like, excuse me, my job as the grandparent is to spoil them. Your job is to parent them. And so we're able then to put these together. So if they're visiting us and I'm serving them ice cream for breakfast and my son's like, daughter-in-law are like, what are you doing? It's like, look, my job is to spoil them. Your job is nutrition. You stay in your lane, I'll stay in my lane. It'll be all good. So it's just, and again, from a somewhat selfish perspective, I love watching how their brains develop. They're sponges, and you realize that the brain just is wired to learn, and we're social from birth, and so we have to do this. And the realization is that if we do this with love and respect and dignity and give them the best knowledge, we're helping them form then the foundation for later on in life. And that's why incredible importance of the, as you well know, from the human development and family studies perspective, the importance of child rearing and parenting and siblings and being part of it. So that's just exciting. And they basically have wrapped me around their little fingers, and it's cool.
That's beautiful. I love when you say the common enemy. Now I wonder. Now I understand why. It's the same story in my house, and it's the common enemy. We are the common enemies. Okay. Well, what you mentioned is absolutely right, because in a relationship, we look at respect, we look at trusting each other, we look at love, and also the space that we want for each other. So when we give that kind of space within the relationship, we are naturally respecting the person's choices and the decisions. And at the same time, we are also knitted together with the love and the trust that we have for each other. So thank you so much, John. It was wonderful to have you. And what a beautiful way to celebrate the 25th episode. And I look forward to more such support, the kind of community that you have built up with GSF, with all of us, putting us together in one community. So thank you so much, John.
Thank you. I'm so honored. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Just honored to be here. Honored to celebrate the 25th. Congratulations to PSAI and many, many, many more talk show broadcasts, and honored to be here. So thank you so much.
So this was an amazing conversation that we had with Dr. John Molidor, and so many insightful lessons that we could pick up. These were like golden nuggets that he was constantly pouring for us, for all the professional speakers. And here is what I want to tell all the audiences who are watching this live show and who will watch the recording later. If you are an expert in your domain and you have that message, you have something to share to the world, this is a place, this is an association, or this is a strong community of professional speakers which you would want to be with all of us. So you can go to psai.in, the website, or connect with us, and we will put you all us in this community. So till then, thank you so much. Please stay safe, stay together with your family, take care of your nears and dears, and we'll see you next Friday at 9 p.m. Till then, have a very good evening. Bye-bye.